What is going on, Metaverse? Animositas here, and I'm excited to be joined by a special guest today. Brooks Brown is the CEO and founder of the Web3 gaming platform Nor. Brooks has extensive experience in the gaming industry, having led strategy and creative development for projects the likes of Star Wars, LucasArts, and Avatar, among others. Brooks has assembled an amazing group of developers and builders working on the Nor project, trying to change the way that we think and act around gaming, earning, and play. If there was a Mount Rushmore of Web3 gaming builders with the largest visions, Brooks would certainly be among this group. I'm going to leave in the description below links to Brooks and the Nor project. As always, nothing that we share on this interview is financial advice, and you should do your own research. Because this is such a wide ranging interview, I'm going to have links in the description below to various chapters for the key topics that we'll cover. And so, with no further ado, let's hear what Annie and Brooks know about life, the universe, and everything Web3 gaming. So, Brooks, it's great to have you here with us today. One of the key topics that we've shared in the past weeks is the purpose and value of NFTs and in game items. So, from a gaming perspective, we're really talking about virtual goods, whether it's in a single universe, a single game ecosystem, or in some cases, NFTs are going to have usage across multiple game platforms, multiple game, titles over time. And so, from a digital good, digital, value standpoint, where do you see items? And let's just talk through that, and I'll go from there.
Yeah, obviously with Nor, we've taken the tactic, I think, pretty strongly that we're not doing items. For us, the big push is that in game, we want nothing to touch gameplay. Mostly because, and I think it's one of the things that spurred the discussion here. I know there's a lot of opinions on how NFTs can impact or how gameplay is impacted by things. And with Nor, we have very strong opinions that it's a detriment, maybe no matter what you do. But but I don't really want to spend time like 2 years, 3 years figuring it out and kind of bring it back. So we're going to stick with like nothing. But the question would then be, what can other people do in the space? Because I get asked a lot, especially after my AMAs or my Twitter spaces when I talk about this, and people are like, well, hey, we do it differently. Here's ours. And as an example, one of the things I got pitched was we're doing a Minecraft style game where the rare goods that you craft with are NFTs. And I just went like, that's literally what I was talking about in here. What I want to do is, I think I'll spend some time with you on this. But when we talk about like what a good does and how it works, we got to talk about the underlying function. Like, I don't really give a shit what diamond in Minecraft actually does. I don't know if that matters significantly, other than it's important, rare, and valuable. That's kind of the function of it. But when we add an NFT can mean a million different things. And so it's important to talk about, again, what is the functionality of that? Because we're talking about smart contracts, we're talking about code, we're talking about what we allow a thing to do. So if we have, for example, a diamond in Minecraft, I can trade that diamond in Minecraft currently with anyone else on the server. I just drop it into a thing, or I send it down a cart, or whatever it may be. And there are servers where actively you have this weird sort of marketplace inside the server. Then there's groups of servers where you can trade, and Minecraft realms it across, and you can trade, and there's like community Minecraft multi-server marketplaces, but there's still a bubble. The moment you add an NFT to it, that's a thing that no one really has control over, saying you can't do. The one thing you can do with an NFT is always send it to someone else. That's the one control everyone has, is I get to choose who gets it next. That's kind of the only thing you can do. So you can say, I have it next, or you have it next. Are you going to give me money? Well, then you don't get it next. And that's kind of the whole thing. So if we take Minecraft diamonds, we say, oh, well, they're going to be NFTs. What is the progression that naturally happens once we've done that? And I think immediately, and it's the large crowd inside of crypto who's super excited about this idea of true ownership, their idea of it and their imagination of it is the first thing that happens. It's, hey, I play Minecraft, I have excess diamonds, I can throw it over to Animositas and you make a couple bucks, and I pay me and I'm happy. I make a few extra dollars. I can maybe, get an extra meal this week because I was fucking around in Minecraft. That's amazing. But it's the next steps. It's what is the progression as I start learning what I can do in the space, or how it works, or how it's produced. And this is where we start getting into what I commonly have referred to as the meta game. As we start playing the game of the game, and I start, or probably someone smarter than me, because I tend to be terrible at this stuff, but someone smarter than me goes, hey, what does it take to actually get diamond? And that's, I think, the first question. And the answer is not just luck, it's digging. Like, I just click and I dig, but there's ways to make digging hyper efficient. There's also ways to sort of cheat and look at the code behind the game and see where the diamonds are and head right to them. Super easy to do, by the way. There's a lot of sort of ways to sort of figure that out. So then it's a question of how fast can a person get diamond? How often can they get diamond? How much is someone going to pay for it? And then now we've got that sort of secondary marketplace that is what sort of happened with Axie. And again, I look at Axie as the par excellence of the play to earn sort of, not just the start, but the setup for it. When people have the diamonds, and the people who I just play because I like playing Minecraft and I also have diamonds, I'm making money. That's this kind of really pure, and I think the image of the space that people want. It's, I play the game and love it, and I also can make a few extra dollars. But that's not how really it turns out. At first it is. How long does it take before someone smart hires 26, 12-year-olds in Thailand to suddenly play Minecraft and just beat the shit out and get as many diamonds as possible? And then I resell them. And now I'm paying them to play. Are they playing? Are they enjoying their time? Am I even playing anymore? What are the diamonds? Well, the prices go down, which means no one's who's just playing gives a shit. It's not worth the time to sell them anymore. It's this really interesting setup that digital goods have always gone through. And this isn't new. This is literally my entire life. If you look at like Steam's marketplace, it's a very good example. If anyone here who plays Steam as much as me, is their backpack is filled with fucking cards. So many cards from Steam. I mean, I probably have over 1,000 from various games. It is absolutely not worth my time to sell them because they're 2 to 4 cents a piece.
Right.
And the amount of time it takes for me to sell each individual card it's worth more than 2 to 5 cents a piece. So now I just have them stack up, and that's it. They just kind of fill my setup until I don't care anymore. And this is the sort of, I don't see a way around this. When we talk about a global marketplace for items, for any game that touches into this, that has that sort of, hey, here's an item people are willing to pay for or speculate around. And what do we do in order to counteract that? It's a real question. I think a lot of people traditional gaming have talked about forever. Again, selling items in games is not like some new idea. This has been around for a very long time, but the challenges haven't changed. The moment you start having that is the moment you go down the road of gold farming, where yes, people at first play, but then later they hire the indigent poor of the world to do it. And then the game is filled with those. And suddenly you've got a completely different game happening that people aren't really enjoying anymore. And it kind of dies. And it's a shame because I think there's some very good, interesting games out there being made with this idea without really thinking about what's the 6-month plan, what's the 10-month, what's the 20-month line for this, and how do we deal with that and make sure that the game isn't just a bump and then a crash.
Mm-hmm. And so I think there's a lot to unpack here, Brooks. When we consider gaming and play in general, what I always tell people when they ask me to give them an overview of Nohr is that really your vision is I would say a purist's vision from a gameplay standpoint. You have taken that approach that we want to break up completely the game, the competitive gameplay within the platform and the metagame components. So everything that deals with costs, payments, earnings, and the metagame around the usage of NFTs. And so that's very different than I think every other Web3 project that I'm following today.
I'm unaware of any as well. I think there are some that
I have any other.
As I've said, there's a few really interesting examples of people taking instead of having the two mixed. A game like Illuvium, for example, literally breaks them apart, but in a way that just gets rid of what I would say is traditional infra gaming sort of Twitch gameplay, and is instead almost all metagame. It's kind of its own strange version of, and it's not in a bad way at all, like its own strange version of like a fantasy football auto battler that is self-contained. And at that point, you're talking about pure metagame. And I think, again, another thing I'd love to discuss sometime. And I've chatted lightly with Kieran and the Illuvium team about it more than a few times. I'm fascinated by that idea because, again, poker is a game that uses money and it works, but it works because they have very hard and fast rules. Well, Illuvium's doing much the same thing, same as fantasy football. I think there's a lot of room there, but none of those games are touching into what I think is that very specific place that a lot of crypto is going, where they've taken the traditional free-to-play model and just added NFTs to those items, to skins even, or anything that's in gameplay. And that's the part that I worry that if we end up in a place where the games we're making are effectively a lot like Axie, where they're not stellar fun games themselves, but ultimately just jobs for the global poor that are managed by people in the West who have money, I'm like, it kind of breaks my heart a little bit to watch games be used for that. I think it's a little Black Mirror to me.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. When we think about virtual goods, so I come at this from an economics perspective. That's some of my background, and in general, the concept of property rights is, in my opinion at least, one of the most valuable concepts and implementations that as a species we've ever found. And so, I actually go back as far as like the first industrial revolution. I've done a lot of historical research, and in that space, what you find is most of humanity for our entire existence had virtually no ownership of property or assets of any kind in the real world. And so essentially, for most of human history, unless you were, a lord or a king or something, you had basically nothing. And all of a sudden you had this implementation of property rights where you had patents and you were able to own your own intellectual property, and you were able to essentially build whatever you wanted. And this was, of course, not in a virtual setting, but as a result of all of that, fast forward now a few hundred years later, and all of a sudden, just the entire world has been essentially improved for the average person by probably a couple orders of magnitude. I mean, when you look
significantly
at everything from birth rates and lifespan, total total wealth, the majority.
We were talking about China earlier. I mean, Jesus Christ, the last 40 years in China, more people have been lifted out of poverty than in the history of the world. It's extraordinary.
And so really the virtual space, and I'm going to call it the metaverse, because the metaverse for me is essentially the collection of all of the virtual worlds that we exist in. And our persona, our play, our political views, and our sharing of information online, all of that is operating in these various loosely interconnected systems, let's say currently. And generally speaking, you don't own anything in the metaverse today. You own almost none of your virtual goods or items, or even really your own identity and self virtually. And so, the part that's really interesting to me, again, from an economics perspective, is if you can, with NFTs and blockchain technology, establish virtual ownership of goods, could we not have an explosion in a positive sense in the same way that we saw in the real world, in the physical world? So that's sort of how I'm approaching the concept of virtual goods. Let's for just a second park aside the gaming aspect of it, but ideally, I would like for people to have that same level of control and ownership of their virtual avatar, their virtual profile, their their social media content that they do of their car, their house, their lawnmower, their woodworking craft table that they have as a hobby. So that's really where I want to see the space go. But let's then dive into how does that apply from a gaming perspective.
Let's actually forget gaming, because I do think you're right. I think it's a larger thing, because to me the movement of towards private property, and I have a very different, we'll just say, political position, I think almost anyone I know in crypto. So we'll avoid a lot of that. But the thing I do find and get a kick out of is private property as it came, I think came with a big problem built into it, because I think there's a larger setup that isn't just the nature of, hey, this is mine. Okay, that's yours, which is essentially what we're talking about. But the second part, which is enforcement through the state mechanisms. I think state mechanisms and hyper centralized sort of setups for any of this that is the enforcement of that power, I think becomes troublesome inside of a great deal of it. And I think one of the bonuses to me for crypto is that it is sort of an ownership mechanism that doesn't rely on the state or secondary contract enforcement or judicial system. So that's the part where I'm like, and it's one of the reasons I've chased down the direction I have, is I'm like, okay, so if we're playing in a place where private property and these other elements are able to behave in the way that they behave, not drastically different, I think, overall than the way they currently do, but without that centralized or power structure that I think corrupts and ruins a great deal of that. I hope I don't have to make that. I can make that point if I have to, but I hope I can presume that fuck the state. The nature of what we do then is, what does it mean to have private property? Because I would even say it goes further than private property in the sense that it abstracts a great deal of elements that we never even considered abstracting. So when we say something like, and I want to, I know it's semantics, but this is where I like to sit, sadly. I want to have control over my social profile. What does that mean? Now, I know the emotion around it, and I'm 100% behind it. Wholly owning your own data and controlling it as it goes. What it means is worth debating. The idea, I can't come close to debating and being angry with. The question for me is, when we have these things, when I own my avatar, what does it actually do and what does it enable for me? Because if we end up in a place where, well, I get to own my Facebook avatar or I get to own my Disney avatar, we're kind of back to that same almost hierarchical, like, what is the thing I own and how does it transfer and move around? How does it behave? Like I like to say it with Noor, the player is the metaverse. And I still believe that's the case. Players are their own metaverse. They travel between places. What they take with them is them wherever the fuck they go and whatever they're doing. And if we have that, what is the thing that's transferring? What is the thing that I own? Is it a 3D model? Sort of. Yes, but also other shit. So like, I think that's the debate that's worth having. How do we abstract and how do we deal with what I consider to be some of the most important personal identity elements of real life, but putting them in a virtual space that doesn't then sort of take on a great deal of the same problems that we have when it comes to how we define ourselves, how we set ourselves up, and how ultimately all of that is still a centrally challenged, controlled thing. I don't know if that makes sense as I kind of say that, but it's, I almost want to say, I want to go further. I want to see how far we can abstract all of it and have me, as I go between places, remain me, but be able to take with me contextually the things that I want to. I don't want to go to I used to go to Insane Clown Posse concerts all the time, but I also would go to Bare Naked Ladies and a handful of others. I did not wear the same clothes to the shows. And Tech Nine concerts or Snoop or Wu-Tang. You do not wear the same outfits to all of these things that I'm talking about. I went line dancing twice. What does it mean when I go? Well, I have to kind of dress up a certain way. I have to behave a certain way, but I don't know. So who controls that? Who sets up what I'm allowed to look like in any given space? That thing that is then transferring, that element that is the me of me, that people I think do want, and they want to have access to the shit that they want to have access to. You want access to the clothing that you want to wear when you go to the one show versus the other. And it shouldn't be on someone else to go, well, I'm sorry, we've changed the rights and you no longer control that item. Good luck for you. It's been fun. So we don't want that at all.
Yeah. So let me lean into this example, because I think it's a great one. What you just described with, visiting some of these different concerts is really cultural norms, if you will. And these are, in this example, based purely on, and the entertainment sector. But I think you could broaden that concept as well. And this is actually what I hope, let me say, will happen is, for the first time really in human history, you have a chance to physically reside somewhere, but elect the norms and the cultures of the virtual communities that you're a part of in a meaningful way, where you then can interact, own, share with those groups. And so, it's a little bit different for me than if I want to go on and join join a video game or join a group on Facebook or Twitter or something, and that's fine. But those groups in general aren't organizing or setting up meaningful structures beyond just communication, right? Because
Hmm.
you don't have essentially funding, and you don't have governance structures and so on in the same way that you have within the blockchain. And so I I'll fully acknowledge that we're in the first decade essentially of the blockchain, and so there's a lot that's going to need to come and be built out from an infrastructure standpoint to support those groups. But for me, the vision is, if you want to join, a group or social circles that allow you to have, different degrees and elements of ownership, and again, we can debate what's the best solution. I think that sort of laboratory mindset where this particular group, it says, well, we're just going to give you the ability to transfer your NFTs and these tweets that you put out, and that's really it. Another group says, like, we're going to fund and pay for your entire virtual life as part of this, but we expect something else in return. You're going to get all sorts of manners and mechanisms that are going to evolve over the next, let's call it 40 to 50 years, that I think we can only begin to consider
Oh
right
no. So 100%. And I think what I enjoy doing is having the conversation around this, because I don't think whatever we're dealing with now, as we call it crypto, that whatever word we're using is not going to be meaningfully the same as what people are
now.
saying even 2 to 3 years from now. Like I make the joke that like play to earn wasn't a fucking thing 3 years ago.
Right.
Like it just wasn't. And so when I say like crypto games, 3 years ago they were gambling. 4 years ago they were flat out like roulette wheels. So like that, like the meaning's going to shift. So I wholly agree. If I can throw my vision into the future, I would love to see less a push towards multiple cultures, and instead the idea of a person always being hyper everything, where wherever you go, you are contingently able to basically take on whatever you desire or whatever you are within any of that in order to connect properly with those groups, freely moving as you do from place to place to place, taking on aspects that people are able to, learn about you and be able to kind of judge a point the same way that, to go back to my concert example, you can always tell who's the grizzled old school fan, who's the new guy who just had a lot of money and bought some fucking $900 t-shirt on eBay. Like these signifiers exist in everything. And I think those need to continue to be, so that way we can sort of know who a person is and be able to, again, connect with them properly. Because to me, the underlying thing that crypto allows us to bypass is that sort of large centralized blocker of connections. Like if to put it like at a base level, to try to boil it way deep down, the more that people are free to connect however they decide to feel like they want to, the more that people can have that, I see the better growth for all people. So if we have a position where everything is DAOs all the way down, just think of it as like a gigantic nightmare onion of DAOs all the way down to the human. So it's like, not necessarily as we're running them now, but just the idea of my activity, like in NOR, I do my activities. Those activities become singular elements that then there's another level that above them. Those are being utilized in various ways to play some semblance of a metagame or a meta economy, that as those things are done, they harden and close. The same way that you have a man working at McDonald's who makes burgers. He makes burgers. That's that first action. People take that closure. Each end of the day, he's made X number of burgers. Well, that's the value of that company. So then that branch then has a second metagame that they play amongst multiple branches. And then McDonald's has a city by city. And then, well, there's also people investing in McDonald's versus other companies. And then there's people who are investing in currencies on top of all of those stocks. And then there's people who are like these layers that have emerged in our economies that are, I think, quite poisonous often, are also not necessarily poisonous because of all of these things. They're poisonous because of a handful of other parts of them. I'm always big on parts of things. So if we can get to the point where everyone is sort of linked to each other, and I'm playing a metagame of stuff you did yesterday and you're maybe doing some other thing, this kind of behavior, I think, can yield a more free person who's able to connect and do stuff and not necessarily spend all of their time worrying about, the large scale metagame that they're not aware of, which is one of the things and I'm trying not to get too philosophical or weird here, but it's one of the things that I think underlies a lot of American culture for sure. But I think globally, everyone feels it, that there's always something else in control, always something manipulating or handling. And those are, we don't call them metagames, but they are that. They're people who control our lives, that control the things around us, the stuff we own. The idea that even in America, where you have private property, but at any point the government can say, no, you don't. And they do it quite often. Or some asshole decides that they want to just seize your house because the HOA didn't tell you thing X. Like, we have a weird system for it right now, but that sort of thing enables us, it represses us. It slows us down. It scares us. And it makes us worried about what we need to be doing rather than what we want to be doing. And those differences, I think, are a big win if we can start pushing people towards the want.
And so when we're thinking about this concept applied virtually, you talk about moving in and out between various circles, and let's call it just sort of ultimate flexibility, if you will, to fit in and jump in. This is, in my view, one of the best values of crypto is you have a system that is less sticky by design than Web 2 and other structures. And so I talk about this as it's a challenge if you're building in the space, because anyone is free to basically at the drop of a hat leave your ecosystem, leave your world, leave your DAO, whatever, liquidate everything, sell it, and then all of a sudden they can just vanish. That close the wallet and everything's completely gone. I think that forces, whether you're a builder or founder, council, whatever, it forces you to have the best interest of your members at heart in a way that you don't have to if you have these sort of walled gardens and moats around structures that are more centralized. So if you wanted to leave Twitter or Facebook, full transparency, I'm not on Facebook. But when you make that
decision,
when you make that decision, you don't really have a chance to to take everything else with you, right? You immediately abandon everything. And so that forces us to really stay as part of the current structures. And I think that's a negative.
There's another side with that, because I want to emphasize that point, because I agree with you completely. Facebook does a second thing where it's not just lock-in, it's lock-in by social pressure. Because as someone who's not on Facebook, anyone who's not on Facebook will know what I'm talking about. I had a friend who had a child I did not know. That is because they posted on Facebook. They presumed everyone knew, and I looked like an asshole. My brother just had his anniversary with his wife, and like I don't have that on my calendar. But he posted on Facebook. People knew on Facebook. These things are reminders. And so people have their social lives now built inside of it, where you're reminded whose birthday it is. An anniversary is coming up automatically. These things are done. Oh, new person was born. You get to see what's happening in other people's lives. And so no one has to make an affirmative action to tell you what's happening in their life, which means you become disconnected even further, because again, they're locked in, they're socially locked in. And because of that, they become their own insular nightmare world where we don't get to know what's happening inside of that box. As someone who's not on Facebook, I know you know what I mean. It's weird because everyone else, at least, especially for us old people, everyone else is fucking still on Facebook, and it's not great.
Yeah. No, I think that's right. When we create structures, I mean, the initial concept is amazing, right? If we go back, 15 years, whatever, 15 years or so to when Facebook was really starting, it had this sort of utopian view of the way communication could exist. And like you said, the actual implementation has left a lot to be desired, and sort of, everything begins as, an optimistic approach, and then it sort of devolves into, tragedy, and then eventually farce right at the end. So, how do
no, and I sat there, I'll never forget. I did set up the social media plans for all of Lucasfilm. So like Star Wars and LucasArts, and I registered all that shit on Twitter. It's a long story, but when I pitched it to everyone, I remember my hopeful, naive, dumbass self saying things like, this gives us a chance to actually really know our fans, to have a relationship with them, to go back and forth. And I was an idiot. In retrospect, I'm obviously an idiot. what it was used for by a handful of very, very smart people up front and good companies, even, and good people, was that one-to-one. You could talk to your fans, you could see what they're into and react to it, you could have fun with it. But over time, as again, as the metagame hardens, as efficiencies need to be found, which is the nature of that beast, as soon as that started happening, we started seeing them incentivizing interaction, which sounds on the face not the worst thing in the world, but it is, because it basically means either you make the biggest garbage that everyone, generic thing that people go, oh, I like that. And again, Facebook's video feed, I think, is the king of this. If you've never sat on the page and watched the garbage that is Facebook video. But then also on Twitter and others, it automatically rewards whatever gets likes, which means extreme comments. Always. I can't on Twitter say, for example, all the stuff I've said here, aside from the short word count, the fact no one will read it, but just saying this, people will either ignore it, which means no one will see it also, which sucks. Or if I say something like, well, I think crypto's for garbage people, it's like, oh, I'm going to literally be the biggest tweet of the day.
Yeah, million
and that's stupid. That's the way we've now incentivized and built people to deal with it. Again, these are things they didn't know. We didn't think about back then. Like, it just wasn't, but it's implicit to the structure. And it's my big push as I've been sort of understand what's implicit to our structure as we're dealing with crypto, as we see things like the line goes up video, which comes out. And I watched everyone's response video. I binged them. And the vast majority of them were just saying he was an idiot and wrong. And it's like, yeah, really? See, what? Like, he's not wholly right. Completely agree there. But it's not that he's wrong. He's got 80% of the parts right. It's we've got to talk about how all of these things, we've got to acknowledge them, but understand also where he's wrong and be able to talk about that, because those parts are actually where we can find power and where we can grow and we can arrange, because people are, again, to use social media as an example, or free to play games, I think is another phenomenal example of how that sort of started from the best intentions and then kind of made its way to where it is today. We need to be aware, because the boom and bust cycle of traditional technology takes 10 years. It just does. It takes forever. Crypto, little faster. And I think we can make it a lot more painful for ourselves than it needs to be if we don't spend time on these things. If we talk about, so what is a digital good? How does it work? Where can I spend time? How do we allow people? What are the rules around it? What can we build basically regulations into smart contracts? And I don't mean in the like weird, gigantic way, but in the, hey, these are the things we know, this type of item, we can't let it start doing. Because if we start letting X, Y, and Z happen, like, for example, diamonds being sold in Minecraft, that's not the right direction. We know this, but we wanted to be able to be traded by people who truly love the game. How do we set that up? And how do we think about it? How do we build these things so that way people have to earn their way to being able to make trades? Like these are real interesting conversations, I think, is where it's going to be awkward. And I think it's going to be a few years of hilariously bad ideas mixed with some good little bits, myself included. And I think we're going to end up finding some really interesting shit if we can have the convo, I think would be the way to put it.
No, I think that's correct. Fundamentally, I always call the last 3 years of Web3 gaming version 0. This was really only a very simple use case that was explored, and nothing meaningful and sustainable has come out of the last 3 years, other than the point that we've recognized now in many in the industry, whether from Web 2 background and a lot that were even outside that have a more, let's say, generic DeFi Web 3 background, have recognized, okay, there's a real use case here that people are interested in and want to engage in. And I've got probably 20 projects that I'm very actively following. And among them, there are probably 50 different takes and approaches, right? You know, every project has multiple kind of versions that they're trying to figure out where are they going to land on. You know, and sometimes it's a painful process because they're structured in various levels of, you know, democratic processes and, you know, councils and teams and so on that are all trying this in a whole bunch of different ways. And so my take on this is I'm going to call it the first gen of true Web3 games, as you said, are going to have major issues with all of them. I don't think anyone's going to get it right, right as if there's a perfect right solution. But by the time we get to version 3, let's call it 10, 15 years from now, my hope is that we'll have been able to pull a lot of those core concepts, whether it is kind of the Nor view, let's split out the infragame from the metagame, whether it's this, let's fully lean into the metagame, but as long as it's transparent. And this is a concept that I'm very much a fan of. As long as you're transparent with your users, you can do anything, as long as that communication is clear. Where it really bothers me is you have people that aren't clear in the communication, and they obfuscate via complex token structures, or you're not really sure what you're getting when you're buying into something.
Yeah, we've been doing our white paper into, I mean, our tokenomics for our project, we will just say isn't like, I have a hard time calling it tokenomics, because in comparison to the thousands of white papers we've gone over where people have laid out intensely complex, well, this comes out then, but if you stake this percent at this amount of time, and then you can do this by yield farming, and it's like, not for us. We're much simpler. And so it's, some of the projects we looked at, I genuinely don't understand. And I know I'm not like brilliant or anything, but the idea that, like, I've been doing this now 2 years, and I've been doing crypto for like 3.5 ish, but really I think the last year has been like a solid, solid. Like, I've had a lot of people teaching me, people like you and others. The fact I can't even parse some of these things, like, or understand what's even happening, I think is a testament to what you're saying, that it's obfuscating the real game. But then we get into, again, my point, because the metagame is the main game, like in a lot of your projects. But what the metagame now is those tokenomics and the sort of a secondary play within the larger sort of token structure, which is making use of the play in the, everything's a layer. Everything can be play. Everything can be a metagame. And so it's just a matter of understanding where you are in comparison with the two, and being able to place the actions in the right order, I think would be the way I'd say it.
Yeah. So let's talk for a second about stakeholders in the space, because when we think about how our structures need to evolve, and I agree with you. Anyone that's watched my videos, as long as they've seen one or two, they know I'm very big on understanding the structure, the framework that you're operating within a game, and especially if you're attaching dollars. But frankly, for me, the time that players spend playing games should be more valuable to them than the dollars. Dollars are relatively easy to come by, time much less so, and you can never get that back. And so, with that in mind, I think we need to consider who are the folks that are invested, and let's, for this part of the conversation, really focus on gaming, and who are the stakeholders in, let's say, the Web3 gaming space that's going to evolve over the next decade or so. And then let's talk about what's sort of in the best interest for each of them as we see this evolving for the next decade, 2 decades.
Well, I mean, so to me, there's only 2 stakeholders in all of Web3 gaming, really. There's more than this, but I think we can divide people into people who are developing and investors / sort of purchasers of crypto. I don't think there are players, not a significantly large amount. And if there are, the people who are playing, and I've watched streams as people played, they're employees, or they're the person who is invested acting like they're playing. I don't actually see people putting in the hours that I consider, and again, maybe my standard is ridiculous, but when someone says, oh, they play the game all the time, they're hardcore into game X, that means it's 4 or 5 hours a day. Like seriously into it. I'm a Dota player. I take a break recently, but I used to do 4 or 5 hours straight every single day for weeks or months. Rust, I did the same thing. Battlefield, Call of Duty Warzone, even Fortnite for a while. Like, when someone's into a game, they're fucking there. And so players, I don't think we have them yet. I've looked for them, and most of them, I think, are investors who've taken to playing their game in order to test it and see if players will come later, which I think is the hope for the vast majority of these games, is that players, there's a dam out there we're waiting to break for players to start showing up in Web3. But otherwise, it's investors and developers.
Yeah, so I'll agree with you and the current state, yeah, 100%.
Oh yeah, no, I'm talking about today. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think one of the points I've made, really, all of the Web3 games that we've seen are essentially gamified DeFi protocols. That there's nothing else that exists today. That's the way that I like to describe this to other folks that are knowledgeable about the space. And
It's a very fair description. I may steal that.
and as you absolutely, you can use it, and as since that's the case, to your point, you're only ever getting metagamers and investors in who want to play those games, and there's nothing wrong with playing those games. Again, I think there's value in gamifying all sorts of things, because as humans, we like to play, and if I can play the type of game that I want, a metagame, God, if Fidelity or Vanguard or whatever of these large 401k companies, if they gave you like a little mini game to play when you were allocating your investments for long-term savings or managing your budget or something, wouldn't we be better off in general, as species, because people would actually probably engage with it and try and spend more time, rather than the vast majority of people that are like, I don't really want to worry about finances, and just kind of let it go off into the ether.
I think you're, generally speaking, spot on, especially when it comes to teaching people finance. It's one of the things I've always been very surprised that there actually seems to be no interest in gamifying. Every other type of education, they've spent a fortune making math fun, making learning fun, but never financial literacy. It seems like that would be really easy to do, and also super good for every fucking person I know, including myself. I put myself in there.
Yeah.
I'm just agreeing with you, basically. I'm just agreeing.
Sure. So I think from a stakeholder standpoint, I agree. You've got the investor sort of class, and then you've got the developers for the games. I also would argue you could probably subdivide the developers between those who actually want to be building games for competitive gameplay sake, and those that are just wanting to launch a project. And Web3 gaming is the hot sector, if you will, of crypto, right? And so
I know,
there's a mix of that, as well as, and as you said, future gamers that are going to enter the space. So now there's I think there's probably a mix of different subcategories, if you will, of stakeholders here, but I think you nailed the key ones.
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on. Right. One of the things I think I've seen a majority of, there's not a lot of traditional games people who come to crypto. The ones that do, it's because they're given exorbitant sums of money. I've seen some offers that some people have taken from some of these companies to join them and lead games or gameplay engineering, and it's like, it's more than the budget for the game that they were working on before they went in. Often, like, it's wild. You're talking about 700-800, like, it's insane the salaries they're offering people. So you get a lot of that. But as far as like people who are passionate about games coming into the space, they're sadly rare in comparison to, I think, the majority who are here for the explosion and enjoying that and having fun with the growth, which is fine. I mean, that's literally how everything works. A VR, as I talk about, every tech thing goes like this. VR at first, pure engineers, and then that follows by business and marketing people who know it's the new hot shit and you can make a ton of money off of it. A few of those people are there because they love the tech. The majority aren't. And you end up in a really weird place, which VR is, I think, paid the price for pretty excessively. Facebook effectively owns that market. Handful of PC people use that too, but the Quest runs that. But also, no one cares. Like VR, and I say this as someone who fucking loves VR, no one cares anymore. It's off people's radar. No one's excited about it. The next headset, people are like, whatever. Everyone's got a Quest that's in their closet right now. Like, it's fine. No one's playing. And crypto's going to do this. Crypto just did this. I think pretty significantly. We saw a huge fall apart from the economy and the games and the players. And I think we will see it again and again and again. But the people who are here because they actually want to make good games don't get scared away. Like, we're here because we're interested in whatever the new cutting edge shit is, because we're dumb. Like, we're just dumb people. I just want to be where the cool, weird new stuff is that lets me do things I've kind of fantasized about. I don't really care if it makes me money because I'm an idiot. That's what I do.
Well, and I think this is maybe a fundamental question. Is this space one that's going to devolve into a race to the bottom, or does it have the potential to have a sort of positive long-term approach that
It
we end
depends
up
on the
with?
meta. That depends on the meta, as it always does. The meta right now is absolutely race to the bottom. It's whatever the fastest thing is we can get out that's going to make a handful of dollars with ways that we can uh, essentially pyramid scheme their way to the surface, where it's the first people in get to buy things the cheapest. There's then an explosion. Everyone's excited. You get people in, you hype it up, and then everyone cashes their chips out. Rug pulls the fuck out of everyone. That's happening a lot. And I know we don't talk about it sort of as a community. I see a handful here or there, but mostly I see people angry about like the tornado thing. That's taken up like 3 days of a news cycle here. And it's like, in that time, I've seen 4 or 5 pretty significant, like sort of rug pull. Like it's a thing we don't want to talk about, which is fair. I know it's negative, but like that meta is part of our meta. That is part of the meta of what we're doing. Our activities are determined and produced by the sort of system that we're within. The system we're within is pushing towards, hey, I don't give a shit. Give me a game. I'll throw NFTs into it. Out you go. As long as I can sell them up front, my coin gets valuable. I don't give a shit. And there are a lot of companies who are very happy to do this. But then when you play whatever they've put out, and I'm not going to name anything directly, but everyone here has played them and been like, this is the thing worth what now? We are basically in a race to see who can do the biggest hype without producing anything of actual note. It's easy to fake a Grand Theft Auto game. It is actually very easy to fake Grand Theft Auto 5 in a trailer or in a demo, as long as it's tightly controlled. Having it be part of a large game or systemic world costs $100-200 million and an extraordinary amount of expertise that only a handful of people have ever actually pulled off. Mm-hmm. To promise that.
Yeah.
And like, that's the goal now, is to try to hype as big as possible, to not deliver, and to take home the cash with you when all of it falls apart. It's a Kickstarter did the same thing. Kickstarter had a huge amount of scams and bullshit because of the same exact problem.
And I think that's an inherent risk of this, the time, let's say, that we're in the space, because it's so early and all you have are metagamers. Sort of by definition, you're going to have winners and losers among those metagamers, and some will decide they get burned so badly they drop out and go play a different metagame because they got in over their heads, and and some are going to, as you said, really be able to cash out with with these early plays. I do wonder, though, when we start to see actual valuable gameplay mechanics and you actually start to see that other possibility, regardless of whether it's sort of the, I'm going to say, the
whatever it is, whatever
it
is,
the Luvian vision, take your pick of 50 reputable projects that are running right now. Does that then basically create the, I'll call it a third wave, where this is wave 2 of the projects right now? Does that create the incentive to say, well, okay, not everything has to be this DeFi protocol skinned in gamification? Instead, we can actually build something meaningful here. And what becomes the process for gamers and metagamers to really have the ability to identify that up front? Is it just, we're going back to, you've got to build it first and then build the community? And
I think we're nearing the point where we have to build, where it's got to be built first. I think we're not there yet, but I think it's getting close. I would say, for me, there's always going to be a break in whatever system or meta, and someone's going to trick it, and it's going to shatter everything, and everything's going to start over. We're going to figure out something cool and new. So it's not like this lasts forever. It's not like the race to the bottom lasts forever. It can have that power as long as we allow a handful of people to be in charge of it, which we are. That is the case. This decentralized world, we all know, is a lie. Most people, it's the same thing as the stock market. It's 90% of the stocks in the country are owned by 0.01% of the people in the country. How much crypto is owned by the top 1,000 crypto holders? Now the top 10,000 or 100,000 crypto holders, most. So we're in a really weird place where they're kind of setting the tone, and that's kind of how it works. Smaller groups tend to set meta tone, especially when they have more sort of collective power. But underneath that, some asshole will always turn up and upturn the whole thing and switch it. The more we decentralize, the better that chance is of happening. If you look at the App Store, the App Store early on didn't have games. People started releasing some games on there. They were expensive. They were more like mobile Game Boy titles. But then like Angry Birds, which is just a Flash game, ultimately, that got ported over, it had a huge breakout hit. And it was originally pay. There was no free-to-play microtrans bullshit. They added that, and suddenly everyone started doing that. And this mobile version of what a game is took over. At one point, as those hardened and people, like, you can follow the market, it wasn't doing great. Flappy Bird hit. Some random dude made Flappy Bird in his basement, and everyone went nuts. It's not like he put money out there. Like, gamers, movie people, gyms float to the top very often. Vampire Survivor just did this on Steam like 3 months ago. Like, they didn't put money behind this. It wasn't some influencer trick or anything. It's good games made their way out. Flappy Bird, super fun. Everyone played it, totally free. Poor guy was like harassed into having to retire. It's a nightmare. Yeah. But what that did is it switched the meta. No longer these larger sort of Angry Bird style games. Now they have what's called hyper casual, designed purely after, almost entirely after the Flappy Bird idea, which is it's small taps, small adjustments, burst gameplay that takes about 20 seconds. It's Flappy Bird. That is taken over the fucking entire App Store, like flatly. So every meta is ready to be broken, and it's always waiting to be broken. And it's always ready to be done. For us, the question is, what is our meta? And what do we allow to be there? Because we're all players in it. We're all setting that up. So if we can sit there and go, hey, the things that are going now, here's the direction. The direction is aiming at kind of, we know doesn't super work, of having these like items free in any video game, hyper speculative bubbles that sort of explode. What if we step back and push a little another direction? Or we do projects that are, I think, going in vastly different directions, all the way from the guys at Futureverse, all the way to, we mentioned Illuvium, to what we're doing at Nor. 3 different directions, you could say very easily, 3 different directions. Yeah. Someone's going to land, and then someone else is already working on that next thing that's going to land next and next. But underneath it, if the people who have all of the power and control, if 6 or 7 companies are effectively the ones who've made all the money and who are investing all the money, they're the ones who determine who gets money. And we're in a really nice place, or we were, I'm not sure about right now, where it was a very decentralized investment process. Mm-hmm. You'd go to a bunch of different ICs from a bunch of different small, tiny investment groups, get a couple bucks. We have 49 people on our cap table for our seed, for God's sake. Like, we did that because they're all ridiculously talented, smart people in their various different ways. But we got 49 people who were able to make the money we needed to get our seed. Is that a thing that can happen now? Or is it you get your seed from 2 or 3 people, or 1, which is kind of what happened in traditional investment and traditional VC, where it used to be a lot. Now there's really 7 or 8, and you really want a handful of family offices. We know who they are, and they're the ones who are choosing who's successful, which means they're choosing the meta. Like, they set this up. And so again, to go back to like how we think about this and how we do it, the people who have power right now, and we only have this for a short amount of time until we have to wait for the next break. The people who have power right now are the people who are doing things, period. All of us who are doing things, whether that's you critiquing, whether that's people investing, people throwing money into it, debating on whether or not to sell, people building, all of us are setting up that meta. Over time, that number is going to shrink. It's just the nature. And soon it's going to be people who are accepting whatever currency is the top currency besides Ethereum, whatever chain is the top chain, whatever they're allowed, like, and being very excited. The same way that, all of those other YouTube crypto channels who do this is the best. All right, guys, I am not giving you financial advice, but this is the best chain I've ever seen in my entire life. It's birthing my children, and I'm having orgasms as I read. Right. Like, that thing that's happening there, we know those, you can spot them. You can spot those people a million miles away. Harder to spot when they're doing the same thing by saying, well, yeah, but this is this investment group. It's saying the same thing, but it's saying it softly. Mm-hmm. And then control is one of those really fascinating things that comes from centralized deep pockets of power. And the coolest part about crypto for me is getting away from those.
Mhm.
Like that's the thing for me, is getting away from those.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that that mentality is what's driven maybe the strengths but also the weaknesses in the space, because this concept, I can create my community first and I can have this decentralized structure, and all these folks, whether it's something like Bored Apes, or you've got games that build these 200,000 person Discord servers, and they're all hyped up about what's going to launch. A lot of individuals in the space have taken this approach. Let's just build the community. We'll build the product afterwards. We'll figure out what we're doing, get all the right people, theoretically on the bus, and then, we'll build something that addresses what, the zeitgeist of that particular community in that era is, and try and capitalize on that because we've got the people first, and we'll build the product second. So it's a very interesting approach.
Well,
and
I would also add to that
by blockchain. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would add to that. One of the things when we talk about building a community, one of the things you asked earlier, like what's one of the next things that I think is going to be the biggest deal is when someone actually nails how to do zero knowledge proof of identity KYC. Because the moment we can actually, because right now, and I know everyone doesn't want to be part of KYC, whatever, I get it, but I can right now spawn 10,000 Discord bots and build a server. And I can do the same thing with comments. This shit's easy. Fuck bots. I could hire poor people in India to do this for me and just build a community. And a lot of people actively do this. So they do it because they want the signification of other people are into this. Because they know if someone new to the space or someone wandering around goes, hey, they have a community. That's amazing. Look at how many fucking people. But, is that what we want? Because that's bullshit. It's bullshit. If there's a way instead where we can go, actually, there are, and you don't have to know it's fucking Brooks, there's 10,000 organisms, humans, people who are involved in this. You don't have to know anything beyond that. Like zero knowledge proofs for that. Suddenly you can go, hey, these are actually the things people are into. Like this is what people are actually doing.
Yeah.
Because that's the part, again, it's hard to parse because some of these projects, I think some of these have hundreds of thousands of active users supposedly, and then you log in and you're like 6 people.
All I'm getting is GM from 9,000.
And it's that setup where it's like, again, to your point, building community first. They know that they have to do it. They learned the meta. What's the most efficient thing? It's not to build community. Building community is difficult. It took us months to build a community to where I'm actually at the point where I'm finally done and happy with the status and the stability of what we have with Nor. It's very hard to do, and you have to be very honest and upfront and take people with you on a journey, and it's kind of a nightmare and a little scary and kind of wonderful. But the easier way to do it would be just to pay all of you. Like, and what's the difference to someone who's new? None. Someone could just look at our server, write scripts that just mimic it, and very soon have entire AI bots and ML that just scan servers, copies behaviors, and puts that in their own. The shit's like next week. We're not talking about 10 years from now. Like being able to just copy a server's behavior and put it in your own so that way it looks like you have as good of a situation, not far out. So how do we get around that and get to, again, I want to know that you're a person. If I know you're a person, whatever the fuck context we're in, just another human, that changes my entire reality. It's a big fucking deal as far as I'm concerned. And I think, sorry, I just a little bit of a rant because I joined Discord servers. Whenever some ad hits me on Twitter, I'm always fascinated because like I'll look at someone's Twitter handle and be like, they have 120,000 followers and oh my God, it's so many. And I go to their Discord and they have like 30,000 members. And then I just post like, hey, everyone just curious about the project. And I get GM. And I'm like, that's not responding to me.
Right.
You're not talking to me anymore.
Yeah.
So it's, sorry.
No, you're good. And I think you mentioned this sort of, zero knowledge KYC approach. I'm actually really excited for, let's call it a minimal knowledge level KYC where you have the ability to sort of opt into the level of content. So, so if I wanted to opt in and say, I am a content creator, I'm interested in strategy genre games, and in particular, maybe it's 4X or Grand Strategy or whatever, and I can pass
Of
that level
course
of
you are.
information. Yeah, of course I am, but but I can also then share with you, here's sort of my background in gaming. And by the way, I don't really want to share with you who I work for or my home address, but I'd like to kind of start and give you whatever information it seems relevant for the community that I'm joining, and therefore you can see, do you fit in with the ethos of what we're trying to build here? That's for me a really interesting second step behind that. And I mean, of course, you then have the immediate question. Well, it's going to be gamified and tokenized and financialized by uh, the data analysis companies of the world instantly. So I think there's still risks there, but if you have the ability to kind of control that and give that information out to people that you choose in some meaningful way, I think that can be a good next step as well.
Yeah, and I think there are ways to fully automate it so no people or
Mhm.
knowledge has to be necessarily even kept. Again, we're not there today, but I do think that we're going to start talking about things that we didn't. The idea of KYC alone terrified, I think, everyone in the space. And then
Yeah.
the apes did it and it worked. And like a handful of others, I think my favorite is I saw a project who was like, oh, we did KYC and we lost half of our user base. It's like, no, no, you didn't.
Yeah.
Your whole user base is
You
still
just kind of,
there.
yeah, exactly.
Um, like it's thinking about it is to me where it's interesting, because these are the things for us to have meaningful experiences. If you're in VR, we learned early on, people need to know that they're talking to a person, because a VR avatar and a regular avatar that's AI driven, good luck. Like you can't tell the difference. And some people are very good at faking being fake, like an AI, and they pretend and they have like voice changers and shit. It's hilarious what people do. VR chat is insane as a place, but the ability to know it's another person flatly alone, just knowing you're a unique human, that you're not being surrounded by one guy who's controlling 7 bots, or the 4chan problem where people go to 4chan and there's like a million posts, so it feels like a million people. It's really like 400 people. Like there's this kind of thing. I think there's work for us to be done, but I think we can get there where we're actually utilizing technology again, just like this, to bypass the problems you're talking about, where we use machine learning can look inside of the wallet that I've got or the photos I've taken. Done, knows, out the fucking door it goes, and then it just adds a check mark. No one has to know that Brooks is Brooks or anything. Just have it encrypted. There's no reason not to do these things. And I think, again, as we talk about what are the things stopping people, that's a huge one. That's a huge one. In World of Warcraft, for a while, people didn't really know that Chinese farmers were Chinese farmers because they didn't talk to anyone.
Mhm.
They didn't. They would just kind of stand in an area, they'd kill things, and it seemed like they were like a broken bot or like someone had scripted it. It was very strange. And there's a reason that the first thing that they started yelling at, because they didn't like they typed in Chinese, they didn't type in English. They would start typing ni hao or these other anglicizations of Chinese language, and that just infuriated players, because that wasn't someone saying hey hello in their own tongue. That wasn't, they couldn't tell it was a person, because it was the same way a bot behaves. The dehumanization at that moment changes how someone deals with it. Like there's so many problems with every layer of this that, again, I think, again, the point of crypto is personal ownership of information, but also utilizing it. Like, what good is it for me to have an identity that is part of this if I'm not able to utilize it? Like being able to be part of these things and have people know and have people be able to trust me and me to trust other people. I think having those circles, and even more, again, these are the points. This is the push we're making really hard. It's one of the reasons, I think we're not there yet. For us, we're building a great deal of our stuff centralized, and the decentralized stuff is about user information and the stuff that, like, I think underneath it all, we really want to be decentralized. I don't think people necessarily care about a lot of stuff being actually decentralized, like servers and stuff. Servers are never going to be on chain,
Yeah,
first off, but like having those decentralized, let us take care of that. Like, we'll make them fast, they'll be good. That's all that really matters. But identity stuff, people need to own. They have to control that. And so we can't have that centralized. So it's building these systems and understanding where the power is as we develop more. And there's stuff next year, I'm sure we'll come back to this conversation and be like, so these guys developed this fucking thing. I'll be like, oh, well, that completely breaks everything I was talking about. I was completely wrong
Right.
in everything I said, and I am so sorry.
Yeah, we have to be willing to have a short shelf life of some of our ideas because events are
Yes.
going to change them. So no, I think this question of trust is it gets to really a heart of a lot of the space. And when you think about builders, so yourself and others that you interact with, this concept that we would like for us and the communities to be able to trust that there's a human on the other end of the avatar, and that you've got meaningful interaction with the game or with the metagame for that matter, because presumably we're going to be able to have AI engines that effectively play the metagame better than humans within the next decade. So that's a totally different terrifying concept as well, but we can talk about that on another stream. But in general, from a builder's perspective, do you think that having builders that are focused on actually creating meaningful value, that they're going to take these challenges into account in their projects? Or right now is most of the focus on, we've got to just build something that's got good gameplay, and we're going to integrate the dollars behind it with blockchain, and we'll figure out some of the rest of these really sticky philosophical problems later?
I won't pretend to know. I mean, my tactic with Nor was the opposite. I wanted to first understand how to play with crypto, I guess. And that's really where the whole thing started. And I worked backwards from there. That's why the game doesn't have crypto in it. It's one of the many reasons. I wanted to kind of go a certain direction. But for people who are developing games, you can't just create a fun game and figure crypto out later. That is not a thing, because crypto is a mechanic. It's flatly, it is a mechanic that affects gameplay, period. And so if you're just adding it in as a thing, as if it's the same thing as a digitally singularly owned back-end item on Steam, you've got to step back and take a moment and realize you are building a piece to a much larger game, and how those in and outs work and how players will deal with it and what happens to them. I think any good designer is doing things holistically and is thinking through every step of the way. I come from the IDEO human-centered design sort of methodology, where you start with the user and you end with the user. It's the only thing that fucking matters. And everything else is navel gazing. You get up your own ass with technology so easily, where you start talking about how, I worked at Starbreeze when I was doing my VR stuff. And when I won Tribeca and Sundance, there was three things that people talked about. The people externally talked about this powerful, extraordinarily emotional experience. The people on the team who I really liked and who did a lot of good work talked about the stuff we did that no one had ever done before. The design challenges we overcame. We invented new audio formats. We used a theatrical 32 speaker system to place speakers around you as you walked. It was insane. And the team behind that at Dolby, at DTS Xperia, was fucking insane. They're brilliant. But then there's a third type who talked about how the headset had the most pixels than anything else, and that's the reason for the realism. It wasn't. I could have done it on a much shittier headset. I'm glad I had the better headset, but it wasn't because of those things. The thing that mattered at the end was the emotion to everybody. The things that enabled that was all the new stuff. Everything else didn't make it, contributed. It's a piece of it. It's a part of the machine that produced those emotions for those people, but it's not the reason. It's not the impetus. There's no such thing as a single part. Oh, it did so well because it had the more pixels on the screen. No. Crypto does so well because it's decentralized. No, that's one thing it does. Yes, but you've got to do a lot more, because if you want someone to actually play your game, and that's like the ultimate thing, it's got to be fun. It's got to be interesting, and it has to keep their attention. And those things in games, we kind of have started to understand more. We know how to manipulate people into those things. It doesn't last. That's why those games have what's called a churn rate. We know those don't last. So take a second and think, what does it actually mean to be decentralized? Because nothing truly is, especially, localized chains that are owned by only a handful of people, or chains that are locked into a larger platform that's also locked away from all the other people. things like that. What does decentralized mean to what you're building? What is the setup for you? What is your world? And I think that holistic approach for the user is what some people are starting to really care about. But I think that's where you get the best stuff. It's where you get the best games in the traditional games world. Whenever you watch trailers and people talk about like, oh, this game's going to be great because it's the best technology, it's the best graphics, it's the best this or that. And you'll see inevitably in the comments, like everyone's laughing, like, yeah, it's pretty. What show me gameplay is like the number one fucking show me gameplay. Where's the fucking gameplay? Show me gameplay. Because they all know it's been a long time. We've all been fucked over by like, oh, pretty trailer. Wait, what? What's this?
Oh, yeah.
Over and over.
But you never see
over.
any of that in the game. Yeah.
Yeah. And so the need to like understand that when developers talk about the actual things people will be experiencing and how, now that's time to perk your ears up, because they're not looking at bullshitting around. It's like, here's why I'm doing it. Here's the things that matter to me. Now, granted, I'm biased. This is how I talk about games, but I can talk about, Cory Barlog, who talked about God of War and his work on it. I worked shortly with Cory at Lucas, and the way he talks about games and the way he talks about people, Clint Hawking, who did the new Watch Dogs that came out. He was Far Cry 2's like big dude. He's brilliant as well. They talk about like, what are the mechanics a person's gonna be doing and what do they produce? That's all these people talk about, is the meaning that it comes from their experiences. And I think as we do that, you can start spotting. I would also say, I would like to make an argument that if your team in games won't link to your LinkedIn's, you're lying. I'm tired of it at this point. It's in crypto only. There's no other games place in the planet that you can have a team saying, I am a veteran game developer who's one of the most important people who ever worked on Game X, and I built this thing and this thing. My name's Rockmaster Johnson, and I'm not telling you anything else. Mm-hmm. And it's like, then we talk about trust of developers. Really? They get, trust us. I'm not going to tell you who I am, but trust me. I promise. I'm a person who has all this experience, and it's very frustrating to me. I get very frustrated by that one. Sorry, I get very pissy about that one.
No, that's understandable. I think you actually hit on 3 or 4 of the key items that I identified in a video I dropped this week about what to look for in great Web3 games. And in that, I talk about compelling gameplay loops and mechanics, clear and sustainable economic structures. I think when you describe this, let's build a game and then just drop sort of the Web3 integration on top and it should just work. Yeah, I liken that to, you have an in-game universe that you've spent all of these man hours building, and you've crafted this lore, the environments, there's gameplay structures, and all of a sudden you just stick a little portal on one side and say, by the way, you can jump through this portal, or you can throw anything from this world through the portal, and good luck figuring out what's on the other side. And that's really what we're doing, integrating with the real world economy in a way that's not very well thought out and considered. And I think that's where, in this sort of second wave of Web3 games, we're going to see the projects that used good gameplay and just stuck Web3 on top of it, versus those that actually thought about, why are we using Web3 for the game that we're building?
Yeah, and I will say, I'm not saying I'm going to be a fan of any of these games that do a lot of this stuff. I have a very weird particular taste for a lot of this stuff, but I don't think it's going to not be successful. What I do worry about, let me say it another way. I probably won't be playing a lot of games that have a deep Web3 items as NFTs thing. That doesn't mean that they can't be successful and good. They're not my taste, but just thinking about it, like literally just thinking about it for a little bit, will make your game infinitely better. And ultimately underneath it, players are not crypto heads. There are players who are crypto heads. Those exist, but they're not the largest numbers. You need bigger numbers. And the good gameplay, the slight bit of thinking, the orders of magnitude that improves your title is shocking. The simplest projects in the Web3 space, when they actually have someone who comes from real game design and who has talked about it, their game doesn't end up being something I dig, but there's a reason those games are the biggest fucking things in the space, because they understand just it's worth taking a little bit longer, just a little bit, not huge, but just dumping that shit in is not going to do it.
So that's some really good advice for other builders in the space. If you were going to give feedback or recommendations to the metagamers that are evaluating current projects today, if you could say these are the top maybe three things to look for that you would say, having seen the good, the bad, and the ugly of the industry evolve over the last few years, what would you tell them to look for in games that actually have some value that they're producing, not just economic, token number go up value?
Um, I have a weird answer for this. My answer is look for what's going to actually make you the most money. And that sounds weird because it sounds like a lot of these rug pulls will do that. They don't. Business models are a funny thing when we start actually comparing them. Take free-to-play games, for example. We're very excited about how much money in the gaming industry. Free-to-play makes so much cash. But it's a silly business model when you break it out because you have basically two sides. You have people who don't want to pay and you have people who do. I think that's a fair description of the people. The people who do want to pay, we can't charge a lot for. We can charge a good amount, and Diablo found a way to really go nuts with that, but you can't go wild. Like, you really can't, because you end up in a place where if you do that too much, players, the other type who don't really like those purchases, they're not going to stick around. And you end up in a place where I think last week I saw an article where some poor dude who spent $100,000 on Diablo Immortal couldn't matchmake. He had purchased himself out of competition, basically. There's no one else playing. So you can't do that. But then on the other side, we have 98% of people who don't want to give you $1 because that's not really their thing. Like, they're not into that. But we're trying to squeeze as much blood from that stone as possible all the time. So it's this minimal money from one side, maximal money from the worst side. Like, it's just a stupid business model when you break it out like that. And I think a lot of Web3 games, there's a huge bubble that happens and people are excited to try to chase that. But when you talk about, like, what is going to be here 3 or 4 years from now? How much money can we actually make from these things? Really do and model it out. Like, traditional models are a real thing, and they do work quite often when you spend time with them and you talk about them with people and you break them down and get all the input. Because when you're talking about a year from now, go have fun. Like, is fucking a bunch of these are going to make you a ton of money as long as you're in early. Because usually how they work is if you get in early, then you try to find people underneath you and then more people underneath them. And there's a shape that is. This thing will make you cash. Go do it. I don't give a fuck. Like, have fun. But I don't think it'll make you as much money as something that's going to have 4 years, 10 years legs that is going to bring in, even if it's a smaller number of people, longer term profits. And I think when you look at all of the really, really, really rich people, the people who make our metagame of our real life very successful, they're not doing the Ty Lopez fucking have a bookcase and a Lamborghini in my garage. That's not what they do. That's what poor people think rich people do. Most of them invest in the most boring things that have ever existed because they know long-term profits are better than higher profits tomorrow that disappear. They know this. All the wealthiest families are oil and shale and gas and fucking gold and copper and lithium and like chemical factories. And like, we know this is the long term. That's the view I would want people to start thinking about, because when we talk about NFTs, when we talk about crypto, we're talking about that level of economics. To me, I think we're talking about like what lasts, what coin is going to be here. Ethereum ain't going nowhere. I just to mention, I know everyone's making that joke because of the 2000. Everyone knew that like 6 months ago when the crash started, 3 months ago. Like, we all knew Ethereum's not going anywhere. This stuff is sticking around. Other coins, more dangerous. Yeah, probably going to stick around a bit. As that hardens, cool. But when we talk about the games that are laying on top of this, are those items going to be worthwhile in 6 months? Are they going to be worthwhile in 3 years? What's being done? What did they actually produce? There's hype. Hype dies. So what are they actually doing? What is the thing that they're doing? Are people going to not be around? It's a real estate works as an investment for very long term because people need a place to fucking live. That's why it works. And it's as an industry. think about these things as you talk about not necessarily what image you're buying, but what projects you're buying into. Do they have a 5-year view? Do they have more than 6 months from now? Are they just flying by the seat of their pants and just coming out with whatever fucking thing they can throw a bunch of money at, as long as they can get more people excited? That would be the thing. Because to me, the whole point of metagaming in crypto, the whole point of being in crypto for I think everybody, is to make money. That's fine. Like, embrace that, but embrace it properly and think through it and spend time really thinking about what's going to actually generate you the most money long term, the most power long term, and the best strengths long term. And I think if you can do that, the fun part is that is the best for you, but it starts also bleeding out elsewhere. Because as you do those things and support those things, you're not supporting the scummy shit structures. Like, you're not. Those things are going to go away if you stop doing that. And suddenly people are starting to see, okay, well, this is the kind of stuff that crypto has long legs for. Here's what it can do. A lot of DeFi protocols, I think, are going to be sticking around a long time, as an example of a thing that like has good long legs. There's a few I don't see going away. Cool. Those are the things to really think about. A lot of the game stuff, ask them about their 6-month plan. Ask them about 2 years from now. Where do they see? What's the platform play that they're making? Are they going to be sticking around, or are they ready for the day when they kind of have to, well, pull in the plug? I guess all of those assets everyone bought are now no longer served by AWS, because that's where most of them are hosted. And they're not really going to be seen anywhere else. So it's been fun. Enjoy your NFTs.
This concept of timing and sustainability is one that I think goes all the way through the Nor platform. And you and I have talked about this a lot, the time approach to infra gaming versus metagaming.
Mm-hmm.
How would you say your view of time in game systems versus in the real world differs?
One of my favorite thinkers, Slavoj Žižek, he has this line where he talks about happiness and how happiness is bullshit. He says, when you're in that moment of creative passions, which we've all experienced at one point or another, happiness isn't part of it. Happiness doesn't enter into it. You don't go, well, I'm happy. Like, that's not a thing that you do. You're lost in it. You've disappeared. And you're ready to suffer and die if you have to in that moment. It's kind of extraordinary. That, to me, at every level is where play is. That's the thing. And it's when metagamers, and you are dealing with future past, it's not the same thing when you're in that moment of investing in investigations and thinking through it and in it and you're lost. You're actually doing the thing. When you've stepped back and you've thought about it, that's the metagame. This is the future past. When you've actually stepped back and stopped action, you're no longer doing things. It's all in here. And you're just back and forth thinking future past. What happened? This happened. And you're thinking, well, I've actually skipped back into the present, because now you're done. Like, it's not a hard break for me for games. When we talk about play, when we can get to those base moments, I don't think there's anything simpler than, say, running as a very simple thing. Running as an activity doesn't really have a future past. You're going, and you may have a direction, but that's kind of about it. There's nothing more to boil down mechanics wise. So if in a race, that's it, you're there. There's no future past. At the end of that race, stats are recorded. Everyone knows how you did, and you're put up against other people, and that becomes the meta. Now those stats get elevated, and then a whole bunch of people who are way too into fucking stats play their game in the meta. Like, this is how the process works. They play their game in the meta by going through all those fucking stats and figuring out who's the best, but they're playing in the meta. And then once all of that's sealed, and the fastest person in the world's this, the best person in the world's this best, all of that set, those become sealed. And then the rest of us in the much larger meta, now seeing the game of the game, just generally know who the fastest person is. Usain Bolt. There you go. We all know stupid little facts about the play of the meta, boiling it down. So with Nor, we want to just try to get it to that point where the games are as tight as possible to those base mechanics with nothing else. And then those collapse, close up, concretize, and then become data points for metagamers to play around with them. This break is, I think, it comes from a lot of different sort of hyperdense philosophical texts, and I've spent a lot of too much time in theory and all kinds of stupid bullshit. But crypto is one of those things that I think revealed it more cleanly than other stuff has to me in the past. because the value of any one of these tokens or NFTs is captured. It's a captured moment, a concretized thing that I'm then able to own and transfer digitally. That weirdness that is that digital thing, because it's not also the digital thing, it's also the aspect of the digital thing that I get to own. Crypto's fucking weird, and I love that. And so as we start revealing this actually how it functions to the human involved, like, because that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the actual experience of playing these games, the actual experience of crypto, not how it works. I'm not talking about the metagame. That ain't where I'm the opposite. I'm diving as deep as possible into the now. What is the actual now experience of humanity when dealing with crypto? And that to me is where we start having the really interesting talk about where one thing ends and another begins, how we close it, how we finalize it. But we just can take cues again from sports or even gambling. Roulette wheel is, I think, a perfect example of that play that is a meta game, but it's play. Everyone puts their money down, blah, blah, the ball rolls. In that moment, nothing in the world can touch that ball or even affect it. If, for example, I were to lean over, you and I put our bets down, I lean over and I go, and I just blow on it slightly. They'd beat the shit out of me and throw me out of the building without even a heartbeat. Did I do something? Do you think I have skill with my breath that I'm able to go, I will slow it down by 2 picoseconds and it will land in? No, I just sort of blew on it. They'd beat the shit out of me because that is a sacrosanct game. That's how it works. Baseball's the same way. If you fuck with a game, they will kick you out of the stadium flatly. Games have to be clean and tight. We've got this. We know how this works in the real world, like everywhere. It works also in the meta game because stocks and crypto, all the information, all the stuff, it has to be contained. Like, we don't talk about it like that, but this is the reality. It still has to be contained. If it bled out into other stuff, that would be then the meta game. So in order to be free to make choices, you have to know the space you're playing within. And there has to be some kind of border and rules. It doesn't have to be hyper well defined. Meta games tend not to be. They tend to be a lot more open and a lot more wild, but they still have to have enough freedom that I'm able to make choices knowing what I'm doing. It can't be changes moment to moment to moment. Values can change, but if I was clicking on Ethereum and it became WETH, became Bitcoin, like, we have rules. We don't call them that, but these are the mechanics of the rules of trading crypto because it has to function. We just don't call them these things. Yeah, so the mechanics of all of it is where we start talking about what is the play. And again, to me, the freeing of play, where I can try new things, where I can do new stuff, where I can push stuff, where play is able to do whatever it does. And that's true of also the meta, because I think people forget that people who are playing the meta, it's not that they aren't as creative, they aren't as lost in the moment. It's just different. It's an incommensurate experience, but underneath it, they're the ones who are finding new, interesting ways to put this flow, connect it to that, buy it into that, put it into this thing that shapes the play underneath it. Very often, the factory owners are the people within capital who determine what factories go where, determine what labor happens where. It's very basic. And then the labor happens and it makes those people money. There's a back and forth. But because we have this fucked up hierarchy of all of it, and because it's hyper centralized with currency and all these other things, it gets broken. So just imagine a place where we had the meta and labor play, and they're able to just do whatever they're doing, experience it, go with it, feed one into the other, and have kind of an incentivization in the same direction. Fucking huge. Mm-hmm. Feels like it'd be huge and massive for us to actually have this whole new way of thinking about money. If only we had a technology for that.
Yeah, that's right. And I think the mindset is different between the infra-gamer and the meta-gamers in a way that is very relevant to how you're describing the split. I think on one of the spaces we were in a little while back, I shared that I view this also from like a neuroscience perspective, where you've got two different parts of your brain that are engaged in different types of play, right? You've got your limbic brain and you've got your neocortex. And for those that are not neuroscientists, I'm not
lizard
either.
Brain.
But yeah, your lizard brain, right? The reptilian brain, that's the part of you that engages in the play mechanic. And you're just reacting. You're living in the moment. And from a biological imperative standpoint, as humans, we're predisposed to use that part of the brain first, and only when that part of the brain fails us do we then shift and begin using our neocortex, which is, more analytical, more reasoned thinking, critical thinking skills, considering the structures, the framework, and all of that. And so, like you said, people that are playing the metagame are playing a different game, but they're also using a different part of their biology to do so. And I wonder. I mean, there are lots of different ways that we could take this, and maybe what we need to do, Brooks, is pull a neuroscientist in here for our next discussion, and the three of us really deep dive into this concept. But I wonder that connectivity between that moment of play and the stepping back to think about the statistics, the metagame, the analysis. I wonder if that connection is such that we're never going to be able to have a true connectivity between the Web3 elements and the play elements in a way that doesn't break, right? And so I think that might be the argument for sort of this purist view. There must be a clear wall between the play side of the game and the meta game itself. Or do you see that differently?
I don't think I see it drastically differently. I think we have a better knowledge of it than you might think. There's a wonderful book called The Gamer's Brain by Celia Hodent, who I was fortunate to work with. She's brilliant. The basically breaks down how user experience affects perception by players. It's very much what you're talking about. I'm not going to pretend to know much about neuroscience, but I would say one of the things that we do know about how people sort of play is they are lost in the moment when they're doing the thing. Like doing the thing is doing the thing, but it's not a break fully between, say, past and present. There's no point where it's I am now and then I'm looking into the past, because I'm always now and I'm also always past. It's about how we order them inside of each other. If you think of every moment as kind of blasting through both, right now I'm accessing a bunch of memories as I'm talking. Now I'm very much right here. But if I take a moment to think back, I'm still here, but I'm deeper into the past. There's I'm kind of both, right? We all get to be kind of both. It's a matter of the organization of those two, how we preface them, how we set them up against each other. And user experience, or the things that we take in, the things that are presented to us, demand one over the other. It's actually one of the things that's really fascinating about generalized user experiences. You can build one that is flatly more aligned one direction or the other. Like just by how buttons work, by how clicking through menus works. Those things, what we have to access when we think about a thing or what we do next or all of that. We're starting to learn more. I recommend Celia's book, of course. There isn't a lot of literature on it, sadly, because it is the kind of thing that I'm very fascinated by, and I've been watching. As far as I'm aware, there's not very much. But it's a huge one. And it's, I think, also outside of this, a secret of life type of question as well. Because as much as you're saying, like, we do have a general different way of looking at it. I always make the joke. To me, it's the difference between a child. I believe we're all mostly blank slates born. We're rewarded one way or the other for spending too much time thinking or too much time acting, or which one we do better. Just naturally, we start leaning towards the now or the before, whatever, just because, our parents fuck us up and life fucks us up and we become what we are. And that sort of shift I've seen in a lot of people around me through my life, and I've seen it in myself as well. And so it's the kind of thing that pushes people to being Warhammer people, 4X strategy people, versus someone like me who's, whatever Twitch fucking nightmare game I can play that's super fast, I will be there in a heartbeat. Then you have something like Dota, where you start to see a little bit more crossover, but the way that people play it is where, again, you start to see the split, because there's people who just flatly enjoy playing the moment to moment. And then there's people who memorize every goddamn stat and know, okay, I buy the boots of travel because if I have the boots of travel, it gives me this bonus, but only if I have this extra thing. Like, it's insane what people access as they're playing. Some other people do it much more intuitively, who have a kind of a grasp generally, but not a hard line. So it's like, this is where I think the fascinating division is. And it's what I'm trying to have us push down. And I have a strong set of opinions on this. I'm trying my best not to stick into my opinion land, but with Nor, I believe splitting them in half is the best thing we can do, because as we start allowing people to play as they do naturally, instead of impeding on each other, because you and I will never play like pick a Twitch game. It doesn't matter. You and I will never play. What was I playing the other day? 1 second. Oh God, sorry. 20 Minutes Till Dawn. I've been playing. It's like a Vampire Survivor sort of super fast little thing. Ultra Rush and Cruelty Squad. Have you played Cruelty Squad?
I have not.
I would love to hear your thoughts afterwards.
Okay.
Very much Twitch game, super fast little shooter that has a stock market. It's super weird.
Okay. Interesting.
It impacts gameplay pretty significantly.
Okay. Might be more appealing to me then. Yeah.
Well, maybe it will be. I'm curious. But again, like, you may not play any of these and enjoy them. I've sat down and tried to play 4X games, and I've got Stellaris, and I've put my 20 hours into it, and it is not enjoyable for me. It's not that I don't think it's a good game. It's brilliant, and it's well put together, and it's well crafted, and I really love a lot of it. But like, there's just parts of my brain are being accessed differently than I enjoy. And I think this is the kind of thing where we talk about the core user experience. What are we after? Well, me as a creator, I'm after one thing, and people to have fun. I want people to enjoy themselves. I want people to have emotionally good, meaningful experiences that build their life and make them, grow as people. So if I'm forcing you and me to play the same game, it's starting off in a bad place.
Mm-hmm. Now, I think those examples are interesting. I recall back when I was playing StarCraft 2, this was pretty recently after it was launched back, a decade ago or whatever, probably longer than that now. I was playing in a 4-on-4 matchup, and there were two other guys that were randoms, and I had one of my buddies that was there with me, and one of the guys dropped in the game. And so normally in a 4-on-4 matchup, if one person's out, you're done. Like, there's no chance to win.
Right.
And so the other guy that was there with us, he just sent a message and said, hey, we're just gonna leave, because of course you'd have to go back and requeue and everything, but it was a ranked match, and so we all cared about it. So I said, no, just let's give this a shot. I said, I've got an idea. And so I'm on, of course, the headset with my other buddy who's playing, and I said, hey man, why don't you just let me do all of the macro, and I'll do yours, the guy that dropped, and mine, and you just do all the micro for all three of the accounts, and you just tell me what you need. Like, tell me what they're building. And we won the whole fucking thing. Like, this diamond level match at the time. And it that really clarified for me. I mean, I knew that he was better at micro, and I knew that I was better at macro, between the two of us. But he was sitting there and just saying, like, all right, send me whatever this is. And, I'm jumping between all three of the bases so quickly. Like, I didn't have to worry about any of that micro activity at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And afterwards he's like, how in the hell did you do that? It was because, like, that's the part of my brain that's activating at a different level. I can't do any of the micro nearly to the level that he can. Like, it's I look like
have you played Dwarfheim?
No, I've heard of it. No, I haven't played it though.
I would highly suggest it's 100% worth picking up. I will happily pick up a copy and play. It's a 3-person team. But the thing that's sort of clever about it is everyone's got their own game on each side of the team. So, like, one person is basically a city builder. They're playing a city builder, basically. Mm-hmm. Another person's playing the hard RTS stuff, and another person's doing like the combat. So it's so again, what you're talking about, everyone has their own skill set, and everyone's got their thing they're best at. And games like this are allowing people to more and more play the games they're good at with their friends, without forcing everyone to play the same game.
Right.
And that, I think, if we go back to World of Warcraft, the reason it was so successful and continues to be is because there's 90 games in Warcraft. So there's something for everyone that's pretty good. I tend to think it's overall lacking in a few different ways. I put in my, I think, 17 months, some crazy shit total time. I wasted a lot of time in Warcraft. But
you don't want to hear my total hours played count.
It's my growing up best friend and roommate. He actually lost his job because he played so much and he kept calling in sick. But then ultimately he got a job. He's working at Blizzard now, so it worked out for him.
Also, that ends well.
But something like Dwarfheim, Warcraft, these other games, we are able to play the game we want. And as we get going into this new era of video games, because everything's changing, we're going to start seeing, I think, more and more smaller titles that are niche, that are interesting for a smaller consumer base, but there's no financial system that keeps those going. There just isn't. The closest we have now is a subscription model, but I have significant doubts about how that's going to go long term for the gaming industry, for a lot of reasons. But I think the ability for us to instead find that meta game, to play in that space, to what is the thing that can connect all of these smaller games, and what can enable developers to just make great games without having to worry about how do I monetize this or do that, or caring about an economy. Because any designer who puts an NFT in their game or makes interoperability or builds any of this shit, that is a nightmare. Like it's just, what do you do? How do you even think about it? And given how little we know about how these things actually function, I think the best option is to just let them make good games, and then let's design around it and let metagamers make games around it. Let UGC happen. Let all this stuff, as again, I think the underlying ethos of sort of crypto pushes, if we can get back to that and reformat it a bit, I think it puts us in a really strong place. As we say, like, I think the thing we say now is, if you were designing esports from the ground up today, where are what you would build?
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's right. When we consider interoperability, this is the last point I want to try and hit on today, if we can. You actually had an interesting take that I would say crystallized some of my thinking maybe around this space of interoperability, and it really helped me consider the environment, the lore, and the sort of consistency of the gamer experience.
Is it the Halo helmet?
No, but no, you can share that. So what I would ask is, for our audience, this is sort of the Ready Player One versus, walled gardens concept. When interoperability, and I think that's a too simplistic a question, but what's your vision for, is interoperability even a thing to be desired at all, and if so, under what circumstances?
Well, there's a long response, son of a bitch. So the first thing is, I would ask if it's the thing people actually want. What people want, and I get it, like, as far as I understand it, the emotional desire is that I have my items. Why can't I take them into Warcraft with me and run around with them? I get that. I get that impulse and idea. There's a shit ton of problems with it, though. Aside from the simple fact of, how do models get distributed, or animation, skeletons, and all of these things, which maybe we can figure out in the next couple of years, not anytime soon. It's significantly different than you think. But on top of that, how do you even have disparate styles work within a singular game? I play a lot of games with a lot of styles. I cannot think of having, like, the hyper real world of Call of Duty show up inside of Undertale. Like, what would that even be as a thing? And then why would an art director who's spent time building a world allow something that so completely breaks their art style, or puts their art style in a different spot? It's challenge 2. Challenge 3 is intellectual property. This is the biggest reason I don't think it'll happen, because I do believe people should have ownership over the stuff they create. So I'm not necessarily a big fan of, like, how Disney has basically extended Mickey Mouse to 9,000 years of ownership. But if I make a thing and it's a big hit, I should be able to control what happens with that, at least for a while. So that way I can manage it and grow it. I used to do licensing for a living. I did it for Star Wars, and I led it for Avatar, for James Cameron, with Kathy Franklin. She's a stunningly talented person. She taught me everything I know about. And one of the biggest things is, you can't let everything go forever. You can't. So if a deal comes out, like, let's say Ubisoft makes an Avatar game, turns out it's a pile of shit. And I've got a new game that I need to sign up because I want to make a second new game. That new game requires exclusivity. The amount of investment that goes into it requires exclusivity. So I need to take that Ubisoft game down. But what if I can't? Like, what if I can't? What if people can buy that game forever? So how many licenses do I have before it's basically irrelevant whether or not someone's doing it? And then Avatar is not making any money, or Project X or Small Platform is making no money from licenses. They have to build things themselves, maybe, you can say. All of that. That's tough. But then the biggest, and I think the scariest, is when we talk about something like Fortnite. The idea of Fortnite being the metaverse, I do not believe it's possible for us to have something like Fortnite if we have composability. The reason Fortnite exists is because all of those brands can license themselves to Fortnite, and no one can take that shit outside of the game. If they could take those, if I could be Wolverine in any game that used the Unreal Engine, let alone any game in the world, no one would license to Fortnite, period. That would be the end of it. Because the moment that happens, that changes the entire economics of the situation, and it makes Wolverine owned by one person. No, really, sort of. How does that go? They won't do it. Like it's going to be a tough thing, and no one cares about, like, I shouldn't say no one. People love their own tiny projects, and they love their stuff. In comparison with Wolverine, in comparison with Avatar, in comparison with Star Wars, nothing is a large IP. So what will happen is Disney, who owns all of those things I just described, will make one giant world that you can bring your stuff to them. This is, by the way, actually Ready Player One, which is a dystopian nightmare future and shithole. And the idea of the word metaverse, which was a dystopian nightmare shithole. By the way, that's what metaverse is. It's always in a shitty nightmare world. We should probably try to find maybe a different thing to reference. But Disney will have all of us go to them. That is how it will work. All of us will want to go take our cool outfits and go look at the Star Wars characters. That's what kids want. They want to be around Luke Skywalker. They want to be around Wolverine. Those will become massive. The things they came from will become nothing. And lo and behold, we'll have Ready Player One, where the reason that everyone gets to be Halo, Master Chief, or they get to be Mickey Mouse in Ready Player One is because there's no option. That is not a cool place for any of us. So that's the big sort of economic thing. Underneath it, let's just talk about a game developer. How do you choose what is allowed in your game? Let's say you're totally cool. Fuck art style. You made something hyper real, whatever. You don't care. Your VR chat. VR chat's 100% visual. There's nothing like gameplay wise. So what if you have gameplay items? How does it work? How do you allow things in there? As a designer, how do I build a game that allows someone who can bring a sword into a gun game? Dude, how does that even work as a thing? How about the different types of guns? Can we allow them to fire as they do in other games? Hit scan, projectile, how much damage? How far is the distance? What if their distance measurements are different than mine? What if they bring a sniper into Team Fortress, but it's a sniper rifle from Hitman? Like, how do you even deal with this as a setup? But underneath it, I don't even think people want that, because when we talk about why things matter, I use the example I thought you were referring to, and I'm going to use it now, is the Hayabusa helmet in Halo. Now, anyone who's old enough to have played Halo 2 and 3 knows the Hayabusa helmet, generally speaking, if you saw it, you knew you were fucked in a multiplayer match. That's the end of it. It wasn't like it was this insanely cool helmet. It was pretty fucking cool, but it wasn't like super special. It was just slightly looked like Ryu Hayabusa, like a little ninja thing. It was earned by doing extraordinary things in the game, multiplayer and everything. So the best players are the ones who had it. You had to spend weeks trying to get it, collect all the skulls or 1,000 kills, like just crazy shit. Now, here's the thing. That helmet had specialness because it was enclosed to Halo. Let's say it's composable. Let's say we can move it around. Let's try taking it anywhere else. No one gives a shit. It's a slightly off Master Chief outfit. That is all it is to anyone who is not a hardcore Halo player, period. And it kind of looks like it's made by an amateur now. Like, literally, just go look at it. Like, at the time, it was fucking fire. But right now, I'm going to be standing up next to 10 million other ninja fucking space marines that are NFTs that I've seen just on OpenSea, let alone the other 10 billion that exist out there that anyone can make. So it doesn't stand out at all specially. And of course, it doesn't have any items. It's just purely a vanity thing. So why would I ever take it outside of that? It does nothing for me. No one's going to buy it. No one's going to buy it. Then secondarily, why would I want other stuff to come in? Because the moment that's possible, how do I stop other people from, one, making other Hayabusa outfits that look identical and bringing them in? Like, I have no idea how you'd even stop that. I assume someone will say AI, magic. Magic's good. I like magic.
Yeah.
But then the second thing is, why wouldn't I bring in something cooler? And then suddenly the Hayabusa helmet is lost in the sea. Signification in games works because of simplicity. It's the only reason it works. If you have 10 million items, then all of them are sort of irrelevant. In a lot of these early free-to-play games, Dota, League of Legends, Counter-Strike, there were a handful of items or costumes or things that were special because people knew, holy fuck, you have that one. For example, I have a courier that in order to get it, you had to witness a multi-kill in the International 2012 in person. It's no small thing. I think there's 20 of us. There's very few people. For the next year, when I used that, people would be like, holy fuck. Like people would comment on it in match.
Mm-hmm.
No one does that anymore. There's 10,000 fucking couriers. No one even notices what I have. They don't even click on it. They don't give a shit because there's too many items. There's too much stuff. It's lost. Signification requires restraint and it requires scarcity. It requires a sameness where a meaning bubbles up. This is how it functions. So when we've got all of these things that can start going between worlds, we could probably figure out the tech issues. Let's say we get around the design issues. Is it a thing we really want? Because ultimately, all it will do is allow us to take other people's stuff into the biggest games and the smallest games will die out. No one is going to take their stuff into a smaller game. That's not, we know the patterns. We've seen how MMOs work. People transfer their stuff to bigger things. People take their IP to bigger things. If you just talk about licensed goods in general, the reason people do licensed toys or toilet paper or anything, car seats, car decals, is because they know that the person who's making the stickers knows that stickers are like not a thing you give a fuck about, like as a thing. But they are if they're in the shape of Superman's logo. Now you want a fucking sticker, don't you? Because you go from the small thing that no one cares about and you turn it into a large thing. Now you as a person have made your transfer into the world of Superman. But that tinier things, I'm into some weird shit. Up until the Boys TV show, if I had a Boys sticker on my car or if I had a Homelander sticker, that has no meaning. That's why they didn't exist. There's no meaning culturally. There's no meaning broadly. These things only exist because someone wants to show off to others. Part of showing off is that the other people know what you're doing and know what it is. It's a signifier to someone else. Insane Clown Posse, who I mentioned earlier, stickers everywhere, signification everywhere because they have enough fans that they can go, hey, I know that you're also a fan. But if no one else has seen it, and if you don't have that confidence, do you care about showing other people? No. So we start losing and having this weird, hyper disparate, atomized meaning that suddenly becomes kind of meaningless. It's going to Comic-Con. If you haven't been to Comic-Con in the last few years, 20 years ago, you'd go, there'd be a few cosplayers and they would be great. And they would all, by the way, be someone you'd recognize. In order to be cool, they all start getting clever with it. So now they're like gender bending Doctor Who in a Superman outfit, shit like that, which is fine. Good for you. But if you go and you look around, the experience of it is you don't know who the fuck any of these people are. Yeah. You don't have the slightest clue what's happening. Now imagine that in the virtual world, which is the case. It'd go to a VR chat. Do you know who you look at? Like, just go and like do it. The people you look at will be the things you recognize. Otherwise, it's like anime girls and shit you've never seen that like is kind of generic, or maybe some weird shit. And you're like, oh, it's weird. Oh, there's Sonic and Knuckles. Like, you know them. Mm-hmm. This is how recognition in semiotics works. So when we talk about composability, what we want is not necessarily what we actually really want. So it's important, as we said, just to finish, it's important as we go again to talk about that, because what is the underlying thing we're trying to get people to do? Well, we're talking about people owning their digital goods, which they fucking should. Like flatly, people should own the shit that they buy. I hate the idea of licenses on systems that people can delete. There are entire games catalogs I have digitally that are gone forever because the Wii store has disappeared and the 3DS store went away too. Fuck that. That's insane to me that I probably have $5,000 or $6,000 in games that are just out the fucking door. So what do you do then? The items in games that I've stopped playing that I wish I could sort of have or take with me, the idea of an Animal Crossing style world or a Second Life type thing where I can have those things as trophies. I get the impetus behind all of this. And that's where how things instantiate is where the magic is going to be in that. Mm-hmm. Just taking my sword from one game to another, that will not happen. Like, we can have fights with that. Crypto people can hate on me. That's just not going to be a thing. But having an item that I take with me that changes how it instantiates. It becomes a statue in a Second Life world that I'm able to put in my house. It becomes a tattoo that I take into Grand Theft Auto that goes on my arm. Now we're talking about ways that you can use that same semiotics to your advantage and to make your character better and to carry those things with you and have the same way you do in real life. By the way, this is how real life works. So the ability for us to have these things and have them instantiate differently, I am much more pushing for. It's what we're doing with Noir. Again, we're allowing a lot of different shit into our platform, but none of it is going to appear how you think it's going to. It's all going to be hyper minimized and simplified because, again, the semiotics of our game are so deeply fucking important to us, and the simple semiotics of everything, they're important to the creative team, the writing team, the people who play, the people who get invested in our story. We can't have Sonic show up and suddenly run around our world. Like, how they instantiate and how they play in it is going to be deeply important. And this is true for everyone. Not everybody, you don't want to know what people actually like is the other part. I always tell people, who is the most popular on StarWars.com? It's my favorite stat. Who's the most popular character who people viewed the most and read the bios of and anything having to do with it? Name one. You get 5 choices. You get 10 choices. Go have fun.
I would have assumed like Han or Chewbacca.
No.
Most
not them
popular...
either. Not them either. Nope, not that one.
What's
Jar Jar Binks.
Oh, okay.
I'm not joking. Jar Jar Binks
No,
up through about 2013. No, it's people who it's not. I'm not a fan of Jar Jar myself, but you have to remember who people are and where they come from and what brings them to a thing. The people who were of the age that went to StarWars.com were people who grew up with the sequels as their primary films.
Yeah.
So Jar Jar was their center. That became the thing that, like, that's the first thing they'd click on. That's the thing they'd see. We don't understand we don't have a clue what people actually will do with these things. And so it's important that when we talk about it, it's not just in our heads. Of course, it's going to be everything I like, because it fucking won't be. And I learned that when I worked on StarWars.com, because it's goddamn Jar Jar.
So I think this question of what is it people actually want when they talk about interoperability of assets, what you said that crystallized it for me is you're actually looking for 2 things. You're looking for community and you're looking for significance. And you're not looking for gameplay mechanics. And
some people are.
Maybe some people are, but I think at its root, when people think about why they want it, in most cases it's going to be those first 2. And the piece that I saw that really resonated, it was actually a random Twitter question that someone had asked, and they said, share something that's a major how did they put it? It said, share something with me that's a major flex but would only be understood by people in that community. And so, like, and I was like, oh, okay, sure. And I posted something. I think it was like Clash of Clans, like the guild that I led won 65 straight, clan matchups or something crazy. And then I did something from World of Warcraft, whatever it was. And it was insane looking at the comments to this post, because it was thousands of people and all sorts of communities. I mean, I don't know, the Twitter algorithm loved this thing because it basically pulled people in from the 4 corners of the earth, and everyone wanted to post what their flex was. But I didn't understand 95, 97% of anything that people were talking about. And that really kind of left me with the belief, hey, everyone has things that matter to them, but you're not really going to understand what it is. And when you try and show it off to other people, they're just not going to get it. And I think that's
I'm going to get something. Give me 2 seconds. I've got a flex. Give me 2 seconds.
Okay. Very good.
A few moments later.
I'm going to show you a t-shirt.
Okay.
And you're going to tell me if you think this is worthwhile. You know what this is? No one does. This says MIT1, Return of the Jedi, good only, opening day, May 25th. Now,
so was that a ticket to the actual Return of the Jedi showing?
Well, I didn't know. My dad gave this to me when I found out I got my job at Lucas. He's like, okay, well, you should have this. I've been saving it. I forgot about this. When I was 2. I was standing in line with my parents because my dad was taking my cousin to go see Return of the Jedi. And I was there like baby. And they gave out, instead of tickets, t-shirts.
Okay.
And this one I got wrapped in,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I kind of got to wear it a little bit, and then they put it away and stored it. So I get this shirt. I didn't know the story fully. My dad told me kind of, I'm like, oh, weird. That's cool. Well, I'm going to be at Lucasfilm for a while. At about 6 months in, I go to Pablo Hidalgo, who wrote the actual Star Wars encyclopedia. Like Pablo, who I'm fortunate, I've spent Christmases with Pablo. We got to be good friends. The single biggest goddamn Star Wars nerd that ever existed. Like fucking insane. And I show him this shirt. And he has no idea. He thinks I bought it off Zapier or some shit. Like he's never seen it before. He has no clue.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, look, can you poke around? Because I want to know if this is like, was this a thing? Like, what is this? Is this bullshit? Like, I had no idea. 3 months later, he gives me the shirt back. Like, it was a thing he like spent time on, and he asked people about. Someone who was George's secretary or PR person like 25 years ago remembered that at 3 places in the world they did this promotion, and it happened to be one of them was at this insane cinema, one of the largest cinema in the world at the time. It was in Colorado. It was amazing. I saw the reboots there also, but they did this promo. That's it. That was it. So only 75 of these shirts probably exist in the world. Now, if I wear that, does anyone give a shit in the fucking, does anyone care? Does anyone care?
Probably not.
It might be one of the coolest things. It's one of the coolest things I have. That's like, not just meaningful to me, but like, it's a fucking brag.
If anyone knew what it was you were wearing walking around,
it's a brag moment. Like, that's like, look, see this shit? And it's like, wow. I don't even care for Star Wars that much, but it's like, I go, wow. But no one cares. Like, no one who saw that, you didn't go, oh, which you wouldn't now. Like, you don't give a fuck. No one gives it. It's a fucking, what? This is, should I have this as I go between games?
Yeah.
Like, does it even matter? Well, why would it matter? It doesn't. What it matters is it matters to me. The significance matters to me.
Yeah,
the setup. And if I have a game where I'm standing in line and I get this t-shirt, I should be able to have instantiations of it elsewhere. I should be able to carry that meaning with me in an abstracted way. The beauty of NFTs, actually, itself. But having the t-shirt in every game I go into, do I want to be in the next battlefield, next battlefront, running around in this t-shirt? Is that cool? Is that so it's this is where it's like, no, how they instantiate and how they have meaning when they move between them, that's the win. Because that's how you can actually, I know there are places, if I wore this around Pablo for Christmas, he'd be impressed. And I like impressing Pablo. It's very hard. He's not a very impressible person. But I couldn't take it to Comic-Con. No one gives a shit. No one gives a shit. And it's cooler than most of the things that they have at Comic-Con, as far as I'm concerned. So it's like, this is where I'm like, what do people want? They want this, but they want to be able to show it and be able to have it and say, hey, look at me. I did this cool thing, or I was part of this amazing thing. And I get that impetus. I 100% get it. It needs to be thought through more than just that step, though. It needs to be, well, how do we show it? How do we have it separated out? How do we keep track of these? What's the metadata that we think of behind it that's actually doing the transfer? So this thing, if I have this t-shirt, the metadata would be like, well, Brooks was this, whoever holds this t-shirt was there at the first fucking screening of Return of the Jedi in Colorado at the fucking gigantic goddamn theater. Like, cool.
Yeah. That
metadata, then having that instantiate to be membership passes or to be other items. Now we're talking about interesting things. Because again, that second step needs to be designed by someone else, because this t-shirt is a shitty t-shirt. It's a fucking shitty t-shirt. It's a cheap t-shirt. This is a shitty t-shirt. It's cool, but it's a shitty t-shirt. But when I take a sword into another game, that's another designer. That's not me, and that's not the designer from before. That's a third person who needs to design and think through how to make that meaningful in their space, because they know what they've designed. And then I can start actually moving around and not have the ball of everything. There's this wonderful film, Everything Everywhere All at Once, that I highly recommend to literally everybody. But it's very much about that, where we have this fantasy that we want everything. that we want to be in a world with everything, that every possibility we want to experience, we want to have the better way. And that's not one, it's not the world we live in. It's also not the digital world we live in, to be very frank. But instead, that we have this unique ability, the human ability, to think through what it is and what it means for us to be successful in any given moment, happy in any given moment, working through anything, and how that signifies the items that appear to do that, the world around us that appears to enable these things. There's a lot more power within ourselves, I think, than we let on in our world. But I think in the digital world, it's where we're allowed and able to express a much greater power in terms of what it means for us to have these things rather than just having the thing, because that's the most boring. I go back to Lewis Black. Lewis Black does an amazing bit on this where he talks about, the back in the day, Enron and all these assholes. We have a bunch of them today who just robbed the world blind. And what did they do with the money? They bought stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's all they did, is they just bought stuff. And like, stuff is like the most boring shit.
Yeah.
We all know it's the most boring shit. We like having stuff, but it's the boring side. And so now we're talking about a really weird new thing where it's like, well, these NFTs signify actually actions and things people did and stuff we did. Well, wait, can we do something more than just make them stuff?
It's sort of like, what is it? I think the Italian Job, where every one of the folks on the squad that are going to have this, whatever, $100 million payday, they've all got their thing that they're going to buy afterwards. And the guy that then double crosses them, he just buys the same thing that all of them wanted to as well. And at the end of the day, none of it made him happy, right? But, it would have presumably been meaningful for the people who that was their dream. But at the end, it becomes worthless for someone that basically steals the concept.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's spot on. It's spot on.
So
it's and it all pushes back to the same thing. And I'll stop here because I do have to run in a moment. This has been 70 hours of us talking. But it comes down to think through which direction this heads us. Every action, and this is with Nora, I remind everyone on the team, and everyone on the team gets this. What we do and what we design either pushes people towards giant singular ownership platforms or away from that. That's it. Those are the only two directions. There is no staying still. If you do nothing, you're going towards those. So are you pushing people towards ultimately what becomes the Disney or Facebook metaverse? That's the first question you need to ask. And the answer is generally yes right now, but they're trying not to. And I just want people to try more.
Mm-hmm. I think that's great advice. And as you know, and we'll share this with everyone who's watching, this is part of my ethos in the space, is making sure that we're creating the world that we would want ourselves and our children and grandchildren to live in. And so I encourage you to spend more time listening to great thinkers in the space like Brooks. And Brooks, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been awesome.
This was a blast. Thank you for having me.
Very good. Cheers.